And good evening, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome to another episode of Steelers Friday Night Six Pack. I am your host, as always, Tony Defio, and I hope that you're having a lovely Friday evening in Steeler Nation, wherever you happen to be. If you're watching me live, and if you're watching me live, you can catch me every Friday night at this time on Behind the Steel Curtains YouTube channel. We bring you live shows each and every night. Shows like this, shows like The Hangover, shows like, what's it called this time of year? The Curtain Call, Steelers Preview, Steelers Post Game, Touchdown Under. You can catch all those shows live each and every week. The Scobro Show is another one. I gotta remember that one. Dave Schofield and his brother Rich. Gotta remember that show. And you can catch all of our live shows also on Facebook Live. So please check those out, and check those out after the fact if you would like. If you don't have time to watch or listen live, you can hear those shows on any audio platform of your choosing. If you please would download those, that would be great. And of course, we have a whole family of audio only shows that you can catch each and every week, including Let's Ride, The Live Mic, The Stat Geek, From the Cutting Room Floor, What Ian's Talking About. I can say it now. If you listen to Friday's latest episode of What Ian's Talking About with Kyle and the gang, you know that I won the 2021 award for the worst take of the year. So I'm truly honored, and I would like to thank the Steelers offense for that award, for helping me get there, and the defense as well, especially in that game against the Chiefs. That was the performance that got me the award, because that helped me garner and glean my reaction to that performance. And it was so bad that it gained me the worst take of the year. So I thank you, Ben Roethlisberger and Matt Canada, the offensive line, the secondary, everybody responsible for that award. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you. So thank you. So anyway, you can catch that show live, or I'm sorry, after the fact on any audio platform. So please check us out. And of course, check out Behind the Steel Curtain, the website, the editorial side. We bring you breaking news at any time it happens. I always see the guys on the Slack channel every time there's a news story. They're like, I got it. They're fighting over who gets to run to the computer first to pound out an article for it. So it's a hardworking site, and we bring you news like that. Like Ben Roethlisberger retiring. We bring you trades, trade rumors, anything, commentary, film breakdown, anything you want in Steelers info, we'll have it for you on Behind the Steel Curtain. So please check that out. It's your one-stop shop for all your Steelers needs. And of course, check out the live chat. Well, I guess I'm checking out the live chat because I'm the one who's checking it out right now. And Steeler Chick 46 was the first one in tonight, so she gets the award for that. Speaking of awards, and then there's Steelers Pittsburgh, Brian Brown, Kathy Ford, Sixburg, Just Me. Did I miss anybody? I did not. So let's talk about our Steelers, and the news never stops, even after the season does. And even though he kind of retired in our hearts on January 3rd when he said goodbye to the crowd at Heinz Field after that win over the Browns on Monday Night Football, and even though he pretty much made it clear that he was retiring after the playoff loss to the Chiefs a couple weeks ago, it was really never official when it came to Ben Roethlisberger and his future with the Steelers in the NFL. And we were wondering when the press conference was going to come, when the big announcement was going to come. And it came out of nowhere. Thursday morning on his social media platforms, Ben Roethlisberger, in a statement that he read while sitting next to his wife and kids, finally officially retired from the Steelers and the NFL after 18 mostly glorious years. There's no other way to put it. And, it gave everybody a chance to be sad again and be emotional again and be thankful again. And it was amazing seeing everybody from around the NFL, both past and present, take social media to wish Ben a great post-retirement life and to congratulate him on a great career. Tom Brady weighed in. Many former teammates, coaches, Bill Cowher, just so many people around the league, people we haven't heard of for a while or heard from for a while, like Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace congratulated Ben. So, it was nice to see the outpouring of love for him, because I think we've always felt as Steeler fans, and I think it's kind of not even an imaginary thing. It seemed like he's always kind of been slighted as far as the kind of player he was, the kind of quarterback he was. And when you look at his resume, it always makes you wonder why do you always lack so much real respect around the league. And of course there were, you could attribute it to his, some of the personal things from earlier in his career that we won't really get into, but really even just viewing it objectively before that even became a thing in 2010, it seemed like people were kind of not really, I guess, sold on him as a quarterback. He was always kind of described as the schoolyard quarterback, this backyard quarterback, that kind of thing, making things up on the go and drawing plays up in the dirt and improvising. And yeah, there was an element of that to his game, to Ben's game, but you don't have the kind of career he had. I would wind up with 64,000 yards, 418 touchdowns. You don't have that kind of career. Obviously 2 Super Bowls and 3 trips, and the one loss record as a starter. You don't have that kind of in the longevity as a player. You don't have that kind of career without being a student of the game, and without preparing, and without having yourself physically and mentally and emotionally ready each and every week. So I always thought Ben got a bad rap for that. So it was nice to see everybody coming out and wishing him well on Thursday. And, I think Mark Madden, and I know a lot of people don't like Mark Madden, and I get why. Trust me, I get why. I think he's had me on mute since the Devin Bush unfortunate cat video comment from, I guess it was July. That's how long it's been. So I get it. The guy doesn't play nice, and but he said something profound on, I think it was Friday. He tweeted a few things about Ben and his retirement. One of the things I think that really stood out, and I think it's perhaps the biggest part of Roethlisberger's legacy, now that I think about it, and that's, if it wasn't for Roethlisberger, as Steeler fans, we'd probably still be talking about the 1970s and those 4 Super Bowls back then. Because really, when you think about it, that was what Ben meant to the Steelers. He was the guy that brought them from the 70s. Everybody, I think if you go back and watch the Super Bowl 40, America's Game episode, Joey Porter said it best. Like, man, they just kept bringing back the old guys from the 70s over and over again for reunions. Like, people were just stuck in the 70s. So I think he said that best. If it wasn't for Ben and him being that final piece to the 00 teams, the 00s, the 05 and 08 specifically, we'd probably still be talking about the 1970s. So he brought them out of the past and into the present, and now they are he made him a marquee team again, like they were in the 70s. You think about it, they had done nothing for 40 years. They became this juggernaut in the 70s, won 4 Super Bowls, had that record for a while. And then, the 80s, 90s, into the early 2000s, they were a team trying to get back there. And you kind of always wondered, was this an organization that was only going to be known for one great era, or would they be able to get back on top again? And he helped them do it. He was the biggest part of them doing it. So to me, that might be his greatest legacy is when you say got 6, when you wear that T-shirt. I think you have, obviously there are a lot of other people who helped along the way. Troy Polamalu, James Harrison, Alan Faneca, Hines Ward, Jerome Bettis. You can go on and on and on. Obviously Cowher and Tomlin and Dick LeBeau, those coaching staffs. But you can't win without a quarterback in most cases. And they had a lot of great teams in the 90s, as we've discussed before. They had some good teams in the early 2000s, but they could never quite get over the top, over the hump, back to the top of the mountain. And it wasn't until Big Ben came along that they were able to do that. So, again, that's his legacy. So, best of luck to Ben. Best of luck to his post-retirement plans. I don't know what they are. A lot of people, if you were on social media, on Twitter specifically on Thursday, a lot of people think he's just going to ride off into the sunset like the cowboy that he always said he was. And you won't hear much from him. I don't know. I doubt he's going to land a network gig. I don't think he wants to do that anyway. But, the way he's perceived nationally by a lot of people, that might be a hard thing for a network to do, is bring him on. But even if they want to do that, I don't see that in his future. So who knows what he's going to do? Maybe he's going to get involved in charities. Maybe he's going to, there's some other endeavor he wants to get into. Maybe he'll be an ambassador for the team, or maybe he's just going to enjoy his retirement quietly and be the anti-Terry Bradshaw in that regard. You won't hear much from him for years. So we'll see. Guys like Bettis and Ward and even Troy, to a certain extent, have kind of remained in the spotlight since their retirement. So it'll be interesting to see what Ben does when you're talking about members of the most recent second Super Bowl era that they've had. So those are my thoughts on that. At least some of my thoughts. I have some more. And I just thought it was funny how, things are today and how things were with Ben announcing his retirement, Ben Roethlisberger, on Thursday morning via social media, because, I always envisioned when his time came to say goodbye that he would, there'd be a big press conference and, he'd be at some podium or at some conference table, maybe next to, sitting next to his wife or having, with his kids, and Art the Second and Coach Tomlin and Kevin Colbert all there. And, there'd be some tears shed and the reporters would be asking him questions, because that's what I grew up with. That's what I saw with Bradshaw. So I saw with John Elway, Marino, Warren Moon, you name it. When a great franchise quarterback says goodbye, it's, Peyton Manning, there's always a press conference, and we didn't see it on Thursday. And, that's obviously a product of the times, a sign of the times. You see more and more players saying goodbye via social media and not really having a press conference. Brooke Pryor of ESPN, she tweeted on Thursday that there are no immediate plans to have a press conference with Ben. I don't even know what the point is now. He already made it official. And he said his goodbyes and he said his thank yous. I guess the only thing that would come out of any kind of a press conference, a live press conference, would be what his future plans would be. And if you remember, if anybody is out there is old enough to remember Terry Bradshaw's retirement, he kind of, announced his plans to become a broadcaster with CBS. But as I said earlier, I don't see Ben doing that. So there would be no real reason for him to have a live press conference other than just for theater. So I guess that's probably not going to happen. But it's just a strange thing. It's like, growing up as a kid, you're watching the Super Bowl, and heck, even like almost into my 30s, players would be introduced to starters anyway, one by one. And then all of a sudden, at some point, I think it was Super Bowl. It was the Patriots' first Super Bowl win anyway. Was it 36? Anyway, Bill Belichick insisted that they all be introduced as a team. And that kind of changed that tradition. And now when you watch your favorite team in the Super Bowl, you don't get to see the guys coming out individually. They all run out as a team. So I guess that's kind of an equivalent to players announcing their retirements now, even big time franchise quarterbacks. It's done via social media and that's it. And I guess that's kudos to them. They have. If you're a player of that stature, you don't really need reporters to get your message out. You don't need a press conference. You can do it yourself, and that's all the press you need. So it just feels weird though, because when Ben was drafted in 2004, I missed that. I was at work. I had the radio on in the back room. I was managing a store at the time, And when you're a store manager, you're doing 20 different things at once, and everybody always wants you to help them. The employees are always asking for your help and calling you up front. And right before Ben got selected, I was summoned to the front, and by the time I got back to the back room to hear who they picked, they were already weighing in on the pick, and of course it was Ben. So I missed that. I didn't get to hear him get drafted, and I didn't get to really experience that press conference at the end of him saying goodbye. But the important thing is, and I wrote this in an article that I'll be coming to you soon, is what happened in between. And what happened in between was glorious, as I've said many times. And the highlights that he accrued over the years, the memories that I have from watching him play, and that's the important part. So his career didn't begin as far as theatrically as I would have hoped, as far as being able to experience that pick live, and it didn't end as I envisioned with the big press conference, but everything in between, that was the important part. So those are my thoughts on Big Ben and his retirement. And it's a new world for Steeler fans now, and for the organization, as far as what they're going to do at quarterback, now general manager. It was made official on Friday. Art Rooney, the team president, he had his annual, I guess you can call it a press conference with the media, and where he gives his thoughts on the just concluded season and what he thinks they're going to do in their immediate future and the direction of the team. And one of the things he said was that Kevin Colbert, the general manager since 2000, he will be stepping down after the draft. He will be taking a limited role after that. I guess he still plans on staying on with the team in a smaller capacity, but he will not be the general manager anymore after the draft. So that's been speculated for a couple of years now, and you started hearing rumors about it within the last couple of weeks. And I guess now it's official. If the guy that signs the checks says it's official, then it's official. So Kevin Colbert will be stepping down, and they're going to be looking for a new quarterback and a new general manager. So it's a big offseason for the Steelers. Obviously the biggest one in 30 years, without a doubt, since Chuck Noll retired in 91, or after the 91 season, and they had to go and find a new head coach. So yeah. Actually, I guess you could say it's obviously Tomlin, that was a big transition from Cowher to Tomlin, but it seems like, quarterback and GM, that's just such a big transition in one off season. It's a lot of change in one off season. So in my opinion, it's the biggest off season for them in 30 years. So, who is going to be the new GM? I don't know. Obviously Brandon Hunt's probably the leader in the clubhouse right now. I think he's already had his interview, or he's going to be interviewed for the job. Omar Khan, their longtime capologist. He's a strong candidate. Those are the in-house candidates. And Mr. Rooney said that they would, obviously look outside the organization for other candidates. So I'm not that deep into the executive side of the NFL to know who the great candidates would be outside of the organization, but I know Brandon Hunt. He's been long rumored to be a strong candidate for that role as successor, and even Omar Khan. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. I mean, it's not a minor position within the organization. Obviously, Dick Haley, Tom Donahoe, and Kevin Colbert are the three people that have held really not the same title, but the same general role within the organization since, the 70s. So yeah, this is not they don't hire a lot of head coaches, but they also don't hire a lot of GMs either. So yeah, it's a big move for the franchise, and who they get, that's going to obviously determine or go a long way in determining the direction of the franchise. So That's one big thing that Art II said. Another thing he kind of alluded to was that Matt Canada would stay on as the coordinator. He doesn't necessarily anticipate them going in another direction, which doesn't shock me. I think once Mike Tomlin kind of gave his endorsement of Canada at his end of season press conference, I think that kind of was was all the clue you needed as to what they were going to do there. And, I think I think it makes sense. I mean, I know a lot of people were upset with the offense last year, and rightfully so. 20.2 points a game. I can't believe they scored that many points a game. It was really a bad offense last year. But you have to factor in all the reasons, and we've discussed these ad nauseum, and that's the fact that Canada and Ben weren't necessarily a great fit, and maybe they wanted to bring Ben back one more year because they thought he was their best option at quarterback. He was all they could really afford if they wanted to remain competitive. But they wanted to retain Canada because maybe they believed in his philosophy. So they wanted to kind of promote him last year and keep him on the payroll, so to speak, for 2022 and beyond. And, of course, you have to factor in, people are upset with the offense over the last few years, and I understand that. But you also have to understand how many losses, I'm talking about personnel losses, this offense has taken since, 2017? Le'Veon Bell, best running back in the NFL, arguably. Stopped his last year with them was 2017. Antonio Brown, best receiver ever. Or at least he had the best stretch in the history of the NFL while as a Steeler. And he hasn't been around since 2018. Ben, the prime of Ben's career ended probably around 2017, 2018. The offensive line started going downhill. 2018, 2019, they obviously they lost Mike Munchak as the offensive line coach. So they had Martavis Bryant at one point. He was one of the more promising young receivers in the NFL, but he just couldn't stay out of trouble. And he hasn't been here since 2017. I can go on and on and on, So in addition to Ben, the end of Ben's prime, they've also suffered a lot of personnel losses, whether it be guys leaving or coaches leaving or players just regressing, like Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, Big Al Villanueva, you name it. Obviously, Ramon Foster retired. So it's been a tough year for the offense from that standpoint. A tough time for the offense over the last 4 or 5 years. So I get why people are upset and probably wanted blood again last year with Canada, and they wanted him gone. But I think if you bring in a coordinator like Matt Canada, I think you have to give him a chance to run the show the way he wants to run the show. And if you hire a guy with a certain philosophy, and we know what Matt Canada's philosophy is, and it certainly isn't what Ben Roethlisberger's was as a quarterback, it didn't match. I think you have to give him the players to do that. People always like to say, I think it's sexy to say or exciting to say, well, a great coach has to game plan, and he has to coach to his players' strengths. And yeah, that's true. But I mean, you can't take a guy who's, a smash mouth, run first coordinator and hire him to be your coordinator and say, all right, I want you to run air choreo, or I want you to run the run and shoot. That's not fair to that guy to do that. So, and they never asked Dick LeBeau to coach to his players' strengths. They always they brought guys in, including Cam Hayward, and they said, you have to learn this defense, and it's probably going to take you a year or two, and you're probably not going to start because that's how complicated it is and complex it is. So they never did that to him, and I realized Dick LeBeau is one of the all-time great defensive minds in the history of the game, but I think the point still is a pretty solid one, and that's you have to give your coordinators, your coaches, the players that fit their philosophy if you want them really to truly succeed. So I'm not shocked that Matt Canada is sticking around. So let's see what kind of players they give him to run his offense. We already know he has the running back and the tight end. He has the receivers, at least Claypool and Deontay Johnson. So they're working on the line. So I guess the question remains is what do they do at quarterback? So I guess that's once they figure out what they're doing at the quarterback position in 2022, whether it's Mason or Dwayne Haskins or a veteran quarterback or somebody from the draft, then you can finally start judging Matt Canada, because I'm pretty sure the player they give him, even if it's Mason Rudolph, is going to be better able to run the kind of offense he wants to run. Because Mason Rudolph might not be Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or somebody like that, but he could move around a little bit. I don't think you need Michael Vick to run Matt Canada's offense. You just need somebody who's more capable of running like the whole RPO thing, and somebody who's a little bit more mobile. And Art II kind of said that on Friday. He said, we really don't need somebody who's going to, be your leading rusher per se. We need somebody who just can, buy time and have some mobility. So I think that's how we have to judge Matt Canada. We have to judge him based on the kind of quarterback or quarterbacks they give him starting in 2022. So then it'll be time to judge Matt Canada. And of course, the skill position players and what they do with the line, what they continue to do with the line. And I have a super chat from Rajan for $4.99, and he asks, I have to get this in, who will be new DC? Rooney said they're going in a different direction with the defensive calling. I don't know. My hunch says it's going to be Terrell Austin. Art said, they're going in a new direction with the play calling, I guess, but that doesn't mean they're going outside of the organization. My guess is it's going to be Terrell Austin. It seems to be the smart money. Obviously they've put out a lot of requests, a few requests over the past week or so. Patrick Graham, a couple other guys that they're going to interview, but none of those guys are big names. So that's not going to be. I don't think they're going to go into an entirely new direction with this defense. It might be a case where maybe Art II insists that the coordinator not only designs the game plan, but calls the plays on Sunday to free Tomlin up for other duties. But as far as like the philosophy, I don't see that changing really much at all. And I don't think it needs to change, because I think the biggest problem last year was just personnel. No Tuitt, no Alou, Bush struggling to get healthy, or just struggling in general. TJ Watt being hurt a lot. Joe Hayden being hurt a lot. I think that was more the issue last year than, and of course, no Mike Hilton, no Bud Dupree because of free agency. That was more the issue than it was the game plan. I think, Alou was maybe the most pivotal player they lost last year, even more critical than Bud Dupree and Mike Hilton, because once teams figured out that they could run on the Steelers, they never really stopped trying to run, except for the Browns, which, they're the Browns. So I guess that's not much of a surprise. So I'm not sure. I guess I am sure it's going to be Austin. But as far as anything else about that, I don't see them going in a drastic, a different direction. I think they're gonna, obviously they're gonna try to tweak things. You'd be foolish not to tweak things from year to year, especially if you're, if you were barely over 500 and you struggled as much as they did on defense, even with the injuries and the departures. I don't see a drastic change coming for the defense. So, all right, what else do we have here that I want to talk about? If we're going to talk about quarterbacks, and that's going to be the sexy topic all year until they pick one, and probably even after they do, because unless it is Aaron Rodgers, people aren't going to be satisfied with whoever they pick, they're going to have varying opinions. So if I may be able to tie in this Sunday's conference title games with the quarterback situation for the Steelers, I think it might be they might be great examples that you can. Well, Tom Brady said when he complimented Ben on Thursday that there's more than one way to bake a cake. And I think when you look at the 4 teams that are left in the playoffs, there's more than one way to get your future quarterback. If you look at the AFC side of things, the Chiefs and the Bengals, well, they transformed their franchises and became legit contenders after they drafted quarterbacks in the first round of recent drafts. Obviously, the Bengals were a huge mess, and they were able to draft Burrow a couple years ago. The Chiefs were in a slightly different situation. They were contenders, but they could never quite get over the hump. They had Alex Smith as their quarterback, but in 2017 they had the 10th pick, and they were able to draft Patrick Mahomes, and he took them from a contender to a legit Super Bowl team within a couple of years. So the AFC, the 2 teams in AFC, they did it one way. They went out and they drafted their quarterback. And in Burrow's case, they put him in right away, the Bengals. Patrick Mahomes, they let him sit for a year until they finally inserted him. And both of those guys made impacts right away. The NFC teams, the 49ers, they went out and they traded for Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of the 2017 season. And, he had some injury problems, which kind of prevented them from being legit contenders right away. But by 2019, they were, and they made it to the Super Bowl. And now here they are again in the NFC Championship game. The Rams, they've been a legit contender for a number of years now. They made it to the Super Bowl a few years ago with Jared Goff, but he really came up small, and you could maybe attribute that to him being young and going up against the great Tom Brady and the Patriots. It's just his 3rd season, but Goff never really improved after that 2018 season. And so the Rams traded him last year to the Lions for Matt Stafford, the former number 1 overall pick. And I mean, Stafford has yet to get the Rams as far as Goff did, but they are back in the NFC Championship game. So, there's more than one way to do it. A lot of people are saying, like me, say, draft a guy, put him in there as quickly as you can. Other people want them to go out and get a veteran quarterback, whether it be Aaron Rodgers or even a Marcus Mariota or Mitch Trubisky, somebody like that. But the 4 teams remaining, they're showing you that you can do it in a different way, a couple of different ways, or a few different ways. Now, it'd be unfair for me not to point out that all 4 of these quarterbacks are high pedigree players. 3 of them are first-round picks, and one of them, Garoppolo, is a second-round pick. So it's not like you can just go out and get your garden variety Duck Hodges or Gardner Minshew or somebody like that and have a great chance of developing. I can't even say that word. Coaching him up to be a franchise quarterback. I mean, you probably have to, if you're not going to draft somebody in the first round, you're more than likely going to have to trade for somebody or sign somebody who is a former first round pick with that kind of pedigree, and then coach him up to be your guy. So that's pretty much all I had to say about that. Is I think there's more than one way to draft to find your next Ben Roethlisberger, and hopefully the person they find won't have a hard time playing quarterback, as I had saying developing. There, I said it. Okay. All right. And I want to say one more thing, something that's been kind of, I just have to laugh all week when I think about it, and that's all the angst over the NFL's postseason overtime rules on the heels of what happened last week between the Chiefs and the Bills in the divisional round at Arrowhead Stadium. It was a great game. The two teams changed leads, like 4 times in the last 2 minutes. It looked like the Bills were going to win when they scored a touchdown with 13 seconds left. But unfortunately for them, Patrick Mahomes too quickly, led Kansas City into field goal range in like 9 seconds. And Chiefs sent it into overtime with a field goal. And the Chiefs won after winning the coin toss. They marched right down the field and scored a touchdown. So people think, all right, it's unfair. Both teams should have a chance to touch the ball in possession in overtime, at least in the postseason. Okay, fine. I get it. But it wasn't that long ago that people were complaining that an overtime game shouldn't end on a field goal if the team that wins a coin toss goes right down the field and kicks a field goal. That's not fair. Okay, so they changed it, and I thought it was a pretty good change. It's too easy today to get into field goal range, and these guys are kicking 55, 60 yarders at freaking Lambeau Field last week. I think the guy Robbie Gould, I think he was at like 50 yards, or maybe he was longer than that, to win that game. So it's so easy for these guys to make field goals from long distances that it almost seems unfair for the team that wins the coin toss to complete a couple of passes and win the game that way on a long field goal. All right, I get that. So you change the rule. The team that wins the coin toss can't win the game on a field goal on its first possession. Fine. Now you want them to change it again to where both teams get one possession regardless. Okay, fine. You do that. Say you do that and say both teams go down and score touchdowns on their first possessions. Now you have sudden death rules again, and the Chiefs or whoever gets had the ball first, they take the kickoff, complete a couple passes, kick a field goal, game over. So no matter what they do, it's never going to be enough for the team that just lost the game. So in my opinion, I think the rules are fine the way they are. If you change them again, then what's going to happen is somebody's going to eventually say, well, it wasn't fair, so they should play a full quarter. And whoever is winning at the end of that quarter wins the game. Okay, fine. Say they do that, and the game's still tied, and it's sudden death rules again, and the team that wins the toss wins the game on a field goal. People are going to say, well, that wasn't fair. The other team should have possessed the ball. So it's never going to be enough. It's never going to end. So I think the rules are fine the way they are. And I know a lot of people don't agree with this, but the Bills had a chance to play defense against Mahomes. I know he's the best quarterback going, but they had the number 1 defense in the NFL last year. Make a stop. Hold them to a field goal. Give your possible MVP quarterback a chance to win the game with a touchdown. And they didn't do that. So, just because you're facing Patrick Mahomes doesn't mean that it's unfair. It just means that you couldn't get the job done if you're the Bills. Everybody always says, defense wins championships. It's all about the defense. The defense matters. Okay, fine. Well, why doesn't it matter when a team wins the coin toss in overtime? Why doesn't it matter? Why doesn't defense matter then? Why is defense helpless all of a sudden? So, again, I think the rule is fine the way it is. Just play defense. Just make a stop. If the Chiefs would have fumbled the kickoff there and kicked the field goal right away, or the Bills would have kicked the field goal right away, they would have won the game. And would people have felt sorry for Patrick Mahomes not getting a chance to touch the ball? Probably not. You know why? Because everybody hates the Chiefs now. They hate Patrick Mahomes. They hate his fiance. They hate his brother. So they're the new evil team in the NFL. Whereas 3 or 4 years ago, everybody wanted the Chiefs to beat the Patriots, and everybody got mad because the Patriots in the AFC Championship game, they took the first possession of overtime and marched right down the field and scored a touchdown, and people thought it was unfair. But if the situation was reversed and the Chiefs would have won that exact same way 3 years ago, nobody would have felt sorry for the Patriots. Why? Because they hate the Patriots. So to me, this is really all about, what team you wanted to win the last overtime game in the playoffs. And if the team you wanted to win lost, you think the rules were unfair. I think that's what it really boils down to. So I said my piece on that, and I will take some questions and comments to round out the show. All right, what do we have here? Do we have anything? A lot of love for the Duck in the live chat, but I think the Duck's a nice story. But I think if his name was simply Devlin Hodges and he didn't have a nickname like the Duck, he probably wouldn't get as much love as he's been receiving. He's a nice little folk hero, and it's cool when he came in. He won a few games for them in 2019. He showed a lot of moxie, a lot of confidence, but really he didn't have a whole lot to lose. I mean, he was the undrafted free agent from a Division II, whatever they call those schools now, and he had nothing to lose. So once people started catching on to him, he was just an ordinary quarterback. Then he wasn't the Duck anymore. He was a guy who threw a bunch of interceptions. So I'm not saying he's a horrible. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy that ride. I'm just saying I don't think he has what it takes to be a starter. He doesn't have the size or anything like that. So, or the arm strength, but he probably could be a nice backup. Excuse me. And if he, continues to find work, maybe he'll land somewhere as a backup quarterback and have a nice career that way. You can make a lot of money that way. So best of luck to Duck. And that rhymed. I'm a poet. Ryan O'Toole says Dupree leaving didn't hurt the team. He had a rough season. He did, but my point was they lost the Bud Dupree of last year, and Alex Highsmith is a nice young talent, but he didn't match what Dupree gave them over the previous 2 years. So, basically I meant they lost the essence of what made Bud Dupree so great the last 2 or 3 years. Hopefully Highsmith could reach those heights sooner rather than later. I think he has the potential. He just has to get there. But he wasn't there last year, that's for sure. All right. Rajon 39 says Haskins will beat out Mason. I mean, we'll probably be having this argument all off season. That's just these are uncharted territories when it comes to the Steelers, and a lot of people who are in their 20s, this is their first time dealing with this as fans. Wow, this is a backhanded compliment. And Mark Malone, or Brian Brown, says to Mark Malone, who's always I don't know if it's a real Mark Malone. If it is, that'd be so cool. And so fitting since, he was one of the first people who tried to replace Terry Bradshaw. But anyway, Brian Brown says, Mark Malone, some of us believe Mason can get it done. And that's an endorsement for Mason by Brian Brown. I don't care if Tony Defeo plays quarterback as long as the Steelers win. Well, believe me, you'd care. You'd care pretty quickly. And I would be a bum, and you'd be wishing for Mason or Dwayne Haskins or Duck Hodges if I was a quarterback, because I would not be very good. I'm just gonna say it. I mean, maybe I can be coached up. I don't know, but I doubt it. I really do. I can maybe play quarterback in a movie, but they would have to, take liberties with I'm 5'9.5", and that half inch counts, by the way. Makes all the difference. So maybe I can. Play like a Doug Flutie type quarterback in the movies, but certainly not Big Ben or even Mason. And Rajon, I guess there's somebody who who hasn't really in the mix anymore. It's funny. 2 years ago when Ben was coming, when everybody knew Ben was coming back from his elbow surgery, at least they were hoping he was, everybody was crying for them to sign Jameis Winston. And now there's a chance that they can do that. And you never hear his name mentioned anymore. And this is Rajon 39. He says, do you really think if they sign Winston that he's going to sit behind Mason? Yeah, I think if they sign Jameis Winston, no offense to Mason or Dwayne Haskins, but shame on him if he doesn't beat those two guys out and to be the Steelers starter in 2022. So I think if they do sign Winston, it's not going to be as a backup. Because why, like Rajon said, why would Winston sign here? if they said you're going to be the backup. Maybe if Ben was the quarterback, or when he did it with Drew Brees, but I think Jameis Winston still wants to start in the NFL, so he would never ever sign here unless it was to be the starter to compete for the starting role. Which, if he didn't have the confidence that he could beat out those two guys, then again, shame on him. Steelers Chick 46 says, pretty soon people will be calling for us to sign Fitzmagic. I don't think they need to do that. I mean, what's the point? I mean, the guy's almost as old as Ben. I mean, it's, either you go with a young guy or you go with a veteran who's a little younger that you hope that you can maybe salvage his game a little bit, like Jameis Winston, who's probably more accomplished than any of the quarterbacks that are available, I guess, right now as far as free agents. Is he a free agent? I think he is. I'm not sure. But I'd rather have Winston than a Fitzpatrick, because I think obviously Winston's a lot younger, and I think he could, if he hits, then you have yourself a pretty good quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years. No one says they need to sign Ryan Leaf. Well, there's talking about off the field problems. I don't know if you want to deal with that. Plus, he's old. Rajon 39. We're probably going to have these lists over and over again this offseason unless they go out and sign or trade for somebody big in March. But he says Tyrod Taylor, Mariota, Bridgewater, Winston. None of these guys are going to sign. If you tell them that they have to sit behind Mason, what has Mason done? And that's right. None of those guys are going to come here. Well, maybe Mariota, maybe Tyrod Taylor, but definitely I think Bridgewater and Winston would not sign here if they thought that they would have to sit behind Mason Rudolph. I think those guys are still, actually, I know they're still capable of starting because they've proven it the last couple of years. So Mariota might do it. But even him, I mean, here's a guy who was number 1 pick not that long ago. Why would he come here and just to be the backup? I mean, these guys, I think they all want to start. Tyrod Taylor, he's your journeyman kind of quarterback. That's the guy that maybe, he's been around a while. He's played for a lot of different teams. I could see you convincing a guy like that to come here to be the backup for a year behind Mason or Dwayne Haskins. But, I don't know. It's to me, honestly, if you're going to go with any of those guys that you mentioned, other than a Winston or a Mariota or maybe a Trubisky, if you're going to go with anybody besides those guys or somebody that's you can trade for, like a Jimmy Garoppolo or I mean, I hate to say Aaron Rodgers because I think it's a pipe dream, but somebody like that, you might as well just draft somebody. I mean, because what's the point of bringing in somebody that is just going to be a placeholder? And Tyrod Taylor is just going to be a placeholder for a year. So what's the point of bringing him in here when he's not going to be your long-term answer? Winston, somebody like that, he would have potential as your long-term answer. Even a Mariota, I think Teddy Bridgewater, I think he's somebody that would be a reliable starter, but he's been around for a while. I don't know if he's your long-term. I don't know. We're going to be having these discussions for the next several months. So it's what else we have here? Brian Hughes says, any chance in getting Pickett? Kenny Pickett, Pitt's quarterback who had a glorious year, 5th-year senior in 2021. Any chance? At 20? Probably not, because I think there's going to be a few quarterbacks that rise up into the top 10. I think Kenny Pickett's at the top of the list as somebody who's going to be a top 10, top 12 kind of pick by the time the draft rolls around. I mean, you know how it is with quarterbacks and with these teams. Even if you think a quarterback crop is weaker than most crops, the need for the position is so great that it kind of inflates their draft stock. I mean, we saw it with Carson Wentz and Jared Goff in 2016. I mean, let's be real. They should not have been the first and second players chosen in that draft. It should have been Jalen Ramsey. In fact, he was far and away the top prospect in that draft. But I think he was like third or fourth or something, because the Eagles and the Browns traded up to 1 and 2 to get those quarterbacks. Was it a couple of years ago? Was it Chase Young was everybody's top pick or top prospect as far as the measurables and everything? But Joe Burrow was the number one guy because he was the quarterback, and obviously he was up there too as far as a prospect. But I think Chase Young was everybody's top prospect, but he didn't go number one. So even if these, if you think of Kenny Pickett or a Sam Howell or somebody like that, the guy from Ole Miss, the guy from Liberty, even if you think they're overrated, there's going to be enough teams out there that are going to overrate them and draft them higher than they possibly should be. So I wouldn't bet a lot of money on them having a chance at Pickett at 20, because I think he's going to be gone long before they draft, unless they trade up, and I don't see them doing that either. So thank you for the question. All right. Christopher Lemon says, just put somebody in there who can pass the eye test. Well, if it was just that easy, I forget who said it the other day. If it was just as easy, if it was that easy in finding a great quarterback, nobody would ever struggle trying to find one. So, all right. Troy Harris says Winston is loony. He had his problems in the past, but I think he's maturing a little bit anyway. And Eventy Crosby says, I'd rather have Tyrod Taylor than these two stiffs. I'm assuming he's referring to Mason and Dwayne. And he's a reliable quarterback, but he's not the long-term solution. I think the Steelers in 2022, they're going to bring somebody in, whether it's a draft pick or whether it's these two stiffs that you mentioned, or whether it's a free agent or a trade. They're going to bring somebody in who could be more of a long-term fix for them. Whereas I think Taylor's been around for a while, and as I've said, he's probably closer to retirement than he is the beginning of his career. So, and we're getting up against it, so I think I'll take this time. I thank you for the spirited discussion, as always. I think I'm going to bid you all adieu on this very cold Friday night. Can you believe it's always cold in January? Anyway, I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope you enjoy those football games. I hope it's a Super Bowl matchup that you like. There are only so many combinations, by the way. But I'm going to enjoy those games. And until I talk to you on The Hangover on Monday with Brian and Shannon White, I hope you have a great weekend. And as always, go Steelers.